And we are live. Hello, hello, and welcome everybody. Welcome this afternoon to this info session. We're so glad that you could join us today for this absolutely fabulous opportunity to hear more about this exciting program and from one of our 2022 investors. My name is Nema Rimba, and I'm a program manager here at Spring, and I'll also be a host for today's session. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that the land I'm virtually meeting on today is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I acknowledge that this is a small but important step in the process of reconciliation and building a positive relationship with Indigenous peoples that have lived on this land for years and years before I was able to immigrate and sojourn on this land. And so, as you may know, Spring has a bold but simple mission to change the world through innovation. To be able to do this, we partner with various organizations, which include our partner for this program that I would like to take a quick minute to shout out. So a very big thank you to the TELUS Pollinator Fund, who partnered with us to offer this program to support women-led ventures. We also now welcome you to engage in the chat by telling us your name, where you're joining us from, and perhaps drop a link to your LinkedIn for other folks here to connect with you. You can also use the Ask a Question feature to the left of the chat box to pose your burning questions. I encourage you to ask as many questions throughout the session. Now, without further ado, let's dive into today's session. This here will be our rough agenda for today, give or take 5 minutes here and there. And so we'll be starting with this welcome, and then moving on to a preliminary program overview covering the general approach to the program. We will then have an interlude to hear from our guest today before we get into the second part of the program. That will be a bit of a deeper dive on the program and the investment specifics and some key things to consider. And then finally, we'll open the floor to you, our lovely audience, to pose some of your questions that you may not have already had answered throughout the sessions. I encourage you once again to ask as many questions, and if you also have questions for a guest speaker, please, I encourage you to pose those as well. So, what is the Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge? Well, women founders in Canada are vastly underestimated and underfunded, receiving only 2.3% of venture capital funding. To actively address this challenge, the TELUS Pollinator Fund and Spring Activator created the Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge. This program focuses on promoting gender diversity within the impact investor and startup ecosystem by nurturing connections between impact investors and women founders. Startups in the challenge will be impact-driven, creating solutions that prioritize climate, sustainability, agriculture, inclusive communities, and other critical needs. Looking at the program format itself, from applications, we receive about 60 plus company applications in the application period. These get cut down to the top 15 companies by the selection committee in August, and then further distilled to 5 finalists in October by you, the cohort of investors also in the program. The program will have 25 to 30 investors pre-committed to invest a pool of around $200,000. And these investors will also walk through weekly sessions from late September to November alongside founders and will be responsible for conducting the due diligence of these top 5 companies. This will be in the format of 10 weekly 2-hour sessions with content, guest speakers, research, and networking. At the end of the program, this will culminate in one direct investment at the final pitch event or demo day, but of course, there are many winners. Now, you may be wondering, is this program for me? Some participants we've worked with including but not limited to seasoned investors curious to learn more about impact investing, experienced entrepreneurs investing or interested in investing, purpose-driven corporate or new career folks, local professionals looking to stay up to date with innovation, and all of these both accredited and non-accredited. And so, why choose the Impact Investor Challenge? And we'll hear a little bit more about this from our guest speaker. But this program is an 11-week training program where we gather a group of investors new or interested to impact investing. This group will go through training and decide at the end of the program to invest collectively into one of the companies that has been selected to participate. Like an angel group, the due diligence work is done by the investors. Unlike an angel group, this program is focused on impact, where the investors will learn about evaluating impact and creating an investment thesis for themselves. With this in mind, investors get access to quality long-term deal flow pre-vetted by the Spring investment team, a network of like-minded investors from your cohort and across all our program alumni, an opportunity to learn the ins and outs of venture investing with a specific lens of impact investing, and in this case, in gender lens impact investing, expert guest speakers and mentors, including institutional investors, practitioners, leading researchers, and so much more, and an opportunity to make a difference with pooled capital in women-led, purpose-driven Canadian companies. So here are some stats from the past Impact Investor Challenge. As you can see, we've had some past winners that have gone on to do great things and have amazing success, including the winner of last year's Women-Led IIC, Dr. Carolina Valente of Voxel Bioinnovation. If you would like to hear more about her experience as a founder in the program last year, you can see our short chat with her during the Entrepreneur Info session last week. The link to the video is posted in the chats. Now, I blew past that, just giving you a little bit of the program experience. And now I would like to invite our guest speaker. Oh, sorry, I'm having a bit of technical difficulty, folks. I'd like to invite our guest speaker, Miah Olmsted, to talk to us briefly about her experience in the 2022 Women-Led IIC. So just a bit about Miah. Miah was part of the cohort of impact investors that invested $293,000 into the winner Voxel Bioinnovation. She is a regenerative entrepreneur, a reparative philanthropist, a lifelong learner. She works through multi-year initiatives in cooperative partnerships such as Zebras Unite and Impact Arts Co-op, with a great emphasis on community-based impact investing. She aims to uplift gender-empowered ventures that co-benefit multiple sectors. Through repatriation work, equitable data sovereignty, and redefining holistic health, she uplifts the work of those committed to making the world a better place. And so it was no surprise that she joined our Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge in 2022. She's here to share her experience on the program, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them as we continue. Welcome. I was just going to give you a little bit of time to just, say hello to the audience before I launch into my questions.
Not a problem. Let's just do a sound check to make sure that everyone can still hear me all right.
Yes,
and
I'm feeling
excellent. And I'm feeling very welcomed. So we can move forward to the questions that you have, and then that way the audience can ask their questions as well.
Okay, great. Then my first question is, I've done a little bit of an intro, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey as an investor?
Sure. So you've sort of done more than just a little bit of an introduction, so we don't need to talk about myself too much, but I will say I come from a different space than a number of different investors that might have been involved in the challenge in the past. In my lifetime, I've evolved from a place where I did not have legal access to my own money. I was originally born in a culture and a time in which women were not legally allowed to have access to banking vehicles unless they had the signature of their husband, their brother, or their father. So to be where I am now is specifically a reflection of a continued commitment to learning. And that is meant for me as a woman to be learning about money from a feminist perspective. So this was a natural alignment for me as an investor, but also as a woman.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. It is interesting to see like how things have evolved, but in this case, of course, evolving in the right direction in a positive way. And so, even with that in mind, like the women led IIC has been developed because women founders in Canada, even with the changing times, are vastly underestimated and underfunded. Yet, these women led startups have been shown to provide innovative solutions for underserved markets. They've been shown to generate stronger returns, and they've been shown to practice better risk management. So, conscious of that, and I guess what you shared, would you say that influenced your decision to join the women-led IIC as an investor? Were there any other considerations?
So all of the above, check, check, check.
Yes.
What also influenced me is that I had previously been a member of another impact challenge. That was an open sourced impact challenge. And during that challenge, I felt an alignment with the entrepreneur who eventually became the winner, Dr. Macarena Cataldo Hernandez, the CEO and co-founder of Viridis Research. And that experience over the 12 weeks and my first time being a part of the Spring community was so impactful that when the opportunity came up later to be a part of the Women's Led Challenge, I specifically called Spring and said, this has been a very rewarding experience for me, and I'd like to be involved in an impact challenge that specifically focuses in on women. And as a result, I was.
Oh, I did not know that. I mean, we do have alumni that come back, but I'm surprised too. I'm like, wow, audience, I'm an alumni from a previous program. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I feel like I hear people, appreciating the interactions that they've had, with folks who are values aligned, in this case, the founder, as well, it's usually the angels. So I'm really glad to hear that the experience was so positive that when we had now the women-led IIC, you were able to join us again. And so then looking back at your experience in the women-led IIC and the IICs in general, what would you say are the key highlights of that experience? How was the program beneficial?
Well, the program is beneficial because I continued to learn, and I am a lifelong learner, which means that there's a lot that I still need to learn. I think that whether it's learning about investing from the framework that's advocated by the 51 Fund, or whether it's through equitable access to alternative funding through Zebras, or looking at regenerative capital. There are also the Women's Equity Lab, that is also quite a prevalent instructor. So the Women's Led Impact Challenge gave me a chance to not only continue my learning journey as a woman who does not have a formal financial background, but it also was a very socially engaging experience because there were different people who had also participated in some of these other programs. And we were able to compare and contrast what we learned in these other programs with what we were also learning with Spring. And we were able to sort of niche down into certain areas of impact that were important to each of us as individual investors, and then compare and contrast the information that we were learning. So it was a layered experience that just continued the learning journey.
Oh, I love to hear it. Like, those networks that like merge, and then just that meeting place of that lifelong learning journey. Fabulous. My next question is actually now insofar as the engagement between not so much investors and investors, but like investors and the founders. And so many times investors are curious about what engagement with founders looks like after an IIC. You invested in the winner Voxel with the rest of the investor cohort. How has your interaction with them looked like after the program? Or what is your general approach to interactions with founders after an investment?
So I believe that we have 7 different forms of capital. We have emotional capital, intellectual capital, financial capital, temporal capital, and so forth. So interactions with founders, you're often looking to see what kind of value does this founder need? Am I the right person to provide that form of capital? If I'm not, can I find the right person for that investor? In particular, Dr. Catalina has been pretty efficient about sending out monthly newsletters to say where she is in her journey. what she needs from her cohort of investors. So not only were we able to invest specifically in her business, but we're also able to invest in her growth and to be part of that journey and to be part of that story. And I think when you're an impact investor, this is why you gravitate, is because your values aligned with the mission of the business, as well as the opportunity to sort of shore up your own financial goals. And she's done a particularly strong job of creating that space to invite us in to be able to partner with her.
I love that dissection of capital and the different ways it can look like. I think if we played this back, you'd probably be able to see like the smile on my face, because I think sometimes the approach, or I mean, the general assumption might be like it's usually just kind of like, financial kind of contributions, which, depending on the angle you're coming in, that might be kind of your priority. But there is these additional layers that still provide value to the founders and can shape that engagement and support, because at the end of the day, especially with impact investors, what I see is you are just, you're rooting for these folks, you're trying to be in their corner, and you're trying to see how you can support, because if not you, maybe the next person or the next person or the next person. So I really appreciate how you framed that. Coming to my last question, this is more at, like the programmatically, looking back at your experience in the IIC and the IIC program, both the women-led and the previous challenge that you're able to participate in, what would you recommend to the participants to get the most out of this program experience?
Well, I'll speak to what has resonated for me. I've been a part of 3 different impact challenges. I was part of a general challenge. I was a part of the Women's-Led Challenge, and then I was a part of a Climate Action Challenge. These are values-aligned challenges for me. In each different challenge, I came in with a different goal, a different learning goal. I think that's an important piece, is to identify what your learning goal is. I came in with a social goal. How did I want to grow as a feminist? How did I want to grow as a financial investor? And how did I want to grow as a community engaged activist? So there were pieces for me that I set. I would say for anyone, whether you're coming from the Coralus community and you want to continue your journey in radical generosity, and many of the folks who've been a part of the Spring community started at Coralus, whether you're a part of a government agency that specifically puts funding into these innovative initiatives that are led by women, whether you're a very seasoned and professional investor, who might identify as a professional venture capitalist, there's a place for you in these challenges. There's a place for you to experience bilateral mentoring and learning. Sometimes you learn more when you have to teach others, and sometimes you learn when you experience what it's like to be a financial feminist from a different part of the economy with a different voice and a different framework. It also helps to come in when you're looking at your due diligence process as an impact investor. Are you looking at a framework that prioritizes the gender lens investing? Are you looking at a framework that empowers Indigenous investors or Indigenous entrepreneurs? Are you looking at this as someone who has a time frame in mind? So you're really looking at the expediency of the initiative, the founder, their efficiency, their ability to scale at speed, especially in climate solutions, for an example. There's so many different ways that you can come into it, and there is a place for everybody in this experience. It's really quite unique.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think the one piece that really stayed with me was just kind of that goal, and then the way it can look so many ways, but that there is a space for all to be able to take on that learning. Thank you so much. This has been quite an insightful chat. In the interest of time, I will let you go shortly, but before I do, I just wanted to see, is there any quick parting shot that you could share with our audience related to the IIC, the women-led IIC, or just like your experiences in general? Quick parting shot, if they went away with one thing, what would it be?
I'm an incredibly introverted person. It's very hard for me to come out in public, and it's extremely hard for me to talk about money with other people. It's not as comfortable as just being around your kitchen table where you're comparing recipes. But yet, investing in women-led initiatives is very much like investing in the ability to cultivate a sourdough starter. You get an opportunity to nurture, but you also get to look at the science behind how do these things work and how do I make this grow? So I just wanted to say to people that even if you feel like doing something as part of a group might seem overwhelming or intimidating, I really want to encourage you to try.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time today. We appreciate your insightful answers, and I will let you go for now. But if folks, I don't see any questions right now, but if folks have any questions that you'd like to pose, feel free to reach out to us and we will communicate those over. Okay, then great. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Bye. Alrighty. I will then now launch back into the rest of our agenda for today. And so the next little bit will cover our company selection and investment overview, program costs, upcoming important dates, and some FAQs that we frequently see coming up. And so then in line with that, how do we, select the companies? An ideal applicant typically embodies a few characteristics. They're environmental and or socially impact-driven companies, particularly in climate tech, sustainability, agriculture, and companies enabling inclusive communities, but we welcome applications from all impact areas. For this challenge, we will be considering applicants that are in the seed to Series A stage. Another important aspect is the team. Applicants, of course, with a stronger commitment as well as a diverse team will have a leg up. Finally, we'll be looking at ventures with the potential to scale and are looking to raise between 250,000 to 5 million in their current round. At the end of the program, there will be about 200,000 invested into one winning company. The exact amount depends on the final investor commitments. On the final investor commitments. So as an example, our past winner walked away with 293,000 investment against an initial target of 100,000. So you can see there is some variation there. The investment itself is made through an SPV called Spring Holding Co., and this will be created and funded. The terms themselves are set on an individual company basis, and then Spring as a company does not carry on the investment, so 100% of the returns are allocated to the investors. The SPV itself withholds 5,000 of the investment committed, and this is for a lifetime of corporate expenses such as accounting and legal fees associated with the running of the SPV. Spring also invoices the winning company 3% of the investment amount as a program and learning fee. Now, looking at the topics covered during our 2-hour weekly sessions, you will learn the what, why, how of approaching impact investing while getting the unique chance to directly work with these purpose-driven founders. Once the 5 finalists have been selected by the investor cohort, both the investors and the founders will participate in weekly 2-hour sessions alongside the investor group on topics related to impact preparedness and measurement, negotiation, valuation, and terms, in addition to all the topics featured here on your screen. Finally, one company will win the 200,000 investment at the pitch finale. As well, investors in these challenges will gain 1-year membership access to the Spring Investing Collective. And this is a network that provides investors access to curated national deal flow of impact-driven pre-seed to Series A investment-ready companies across all sectors. And then this also provides an opportunity to invest as syndicates or via Spring's SPVs. It gives you a community of like-minded investors, both in person and virtually, through regular investor-only events, pitch events, and socials. It will give you an access to ongoing educational investing content, workshop, and tools to further your learning. Be a lifelong learner like our guest speaker shared early on. And then it will also keep you informed on trends and opportunities in the impact investing space. There is a one-time program fee that covers the administrative, legal support, and course fee associated with the program and provides you with the 1-year access to the network membership. This fee is $1,200 plus GST. And currently we have an early bird offer until the end of this month at $950 plus GST. As well, there is a limited opportunity to come on board with a friend or colleague under a buddy pass approach that we are calling Investy Bestie, where you can split the program fee in half. Think of it as a 2-for-1. In terms of the investment commitment, this is $2,500 for non-accredited investors and $10,000 for accredited investors. This is a minimum threshold, but you're welcome to commit more or add on to your commitment after the finalist selection as well. If you're an alumni or enjoy the program and would like to keep returning, investor alumni can join any future IIC for free. That is no program fee, only the investment commitment. Now, looking at key upcoming dates, we have the investor deadline coming up on the 28th of August, followed by an investor orientation, which is on September 27th. Another big date is the finalist selection on October 18th. And then the big public pitch finale event, and that's on November 29th. On November 6th, you have the post-investment consideration. This is the last session to just close out the pieces of the investment and the program. Now, this was a bunch of information, and many times folks have questions that come up based on what we've shared. And so to kind of give you a little bit more value, we've consolidated a couple of frequently asked questions that I will answer right now, rapid fire style, to give you some additional insight based on what typically shows up for people. And so, who is classified as an accredited investor? So there's a series of criteria, but the most common criteria is income. So an individual who has a before tax income of over $200,000 for at least 2 years in a row, or a household income, so combining with a spouse, of $300,000, and expects that income to to exceed that income in the current calendar year. We have a quick link posted in the chat that you can read a little bit more about. And then historically, has the SPV investment been the largest capital injection into the enterprise, or are they small pieces of a larger raise? So usually they are small pieces of a larger raise. Seed Series A companies raising anywhere between $250,000 to $5 million on average. So this is just an average. And then the next question here is around why we charge a program fee. So we charge a fee for the program to be economically feasible on our end, and for buy-in, for it to be physically or economically feasible on our end, and also for the educational portion of the program to be able to deliver that. And then the next question here, does Spring or a rep of the SPV take a board or observer seat? We as Spring try to stay administrative, but there's an option for a member of the investor cohort to do this. This depends on the round and if a board seat will be offered. What tends to be offered typically is an advisor role. Another very frequent question is in regards to the exits. As you know, Spring has had a couple of challenges. And so have there been any exits? So they have not been any exits in the past challenges, as they have focused on earlier stage companies, usually around the pre-seed to seed stage. However, almost all the companies have re-raised since the investment, raising at higher valuation. One metric to see the success of the portfolio is the markup on valuations. And we have seen 2.1x markup markup on average, with some, of course, on the lower end of this and some on the higher end. These markups are a good sign because they demonstrate the company's ability to show value creation, usually a combination of revenue, new intellectual property, and or new strategic partnerships. There hasn't been an exit so far, but given the short period of time invested, this is of course not unusual. You can look into the previous winners and their journey in the charts. You can see this posted on the charts, who the winners are, their associate years, and then what they've been up to on their respective websites. So that will be posted in the chat shortly. Then the next question is in regards to the program's delivery and the time commitment. And so our weekly sessions are online. However, we try to have social events in the major cities to get people together and moving. And we're also moving towards hybrid finales. The weekly sessions themselves are 2 hours once a week for 10 weeks. As the program progresses and you begin to work on due diligence, usually around the 5th week mark, you will plan for a few extra hours here and there in addition to the sessions to get through the due diligence portion. And then when will you know what startups are participating? That's a really important question. So the selection process for the startups usually ends at least 3 weeks before the start of the challenge. Once this pool is identified, we will share the list with you in the form of a blog post, and this will give you insights onto the companies as well as their impact to date. How is the winning company selected? So now you've gone through the whole process and we're trying to come up with a winner. How does that happen? So all the selection is done by the investor group. And during the course of the program, you will get to filter the startup group from 15 to 5 in order to select one at the end. At each stage, you will receive an individual voting sheet. The results of all investors will then be pooled, and the startups with the most votes will get selected to the next phases and eventually win. The winning company is determined as the company that receives at least 50% of all votes cast. In some cases, this requires 2 voting rounds. Coming up almost at the end, another question we see is whether people can invest in a different company in addition to the women-led winner. You are free to invest directly in any company. Keep in mind that this option is usually only open to accredited investors due to the securities regulation. If there is a demand from the cohort to make an investment in a second company, Spring may be able to offer an SPV structure through the Spring Investing Collective that would be able to include non-accredited investors. Then, what do investors typically do after having gone through this program? Most investors will continue exploring investment opportunities either through deal flow provided by Spring or outside of this. As an alumni of the program, you have the possibility to invest in subsequent winning companies of other IICs managed by Spring. As well, we encourage you to stay involved in the community and the angel investing community by joining the Spring Investive Collective. We also have a venture fund that is available to accredited investors. Please contact us to learn more. And then finally, what is the exit strategy in place for each investment? So each investment differs, but most companies are seeking to return capital to their investors via strategic sale or an IPO. We also allow entrepreneurs and investors to consider alternative investment structures, such as revenue-backed financing, which could be liquidated over time with repayments. And so this was a lot of information to cover, but in summary, the Women-Led IIC will give you pre-vetted deal flow of women-led ventures, a network of like-minded investors, education on impact lens investing with expert guest speakers and mentors, and finally, an actual investment. And so as I kind of wind that little bit up, I will now come into the Q&A portion of our session. And so if you have not already, I welcome you to share any questions that you may have. And as you do that, I'm going to give you a moment to do that. But please also answer our poll question and let us know how this session was for you. We endeavor to provide support and answers in a way that is best for our audience, and your feedback will let us know if this format works. So gonna give two secs for that, as I see if there are any questions here for me. Okay, I see no questions, and I see no questions in the chat. I'm glad to see that I guess we answered a lot of the questions that were coming up for you. Should this change, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to me at nema@spring.is. You can also visit our website and see if there's any other questions that could be answered by visiting our website. If you came in and you thought, whoa, this has told me everything, I am so ready to dive right into this Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge as an investor, then you can click the Apply Now button, the mint green Apply Now button, either at the bottom of the screen or to the left of the chat. And we look forward to receiving your applications. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time today and have a magical, magical afternoon. Bye, folks.